Good evening and welcome to Conversations Live, Get Your Garden On. I'm Patty Satalia. With summer just around the corner, so are the chores and checklists for home gardeners. Tonight, Penn State Extension specialists will join us to share their tips for a successful and enjoyable growing season. They'll also be taking your questions. Now, let's meet our guests. Tom Butzler is a Penn State Extension horticulture educator. He works with commercial horticulture operations and the landscaping community in Clinton County. His area of expertise is vegetable production and beekeeping. John Esslinger is a county-based extension educator with Penn State Extension. He works with fruit and vegetable growers and in greenhouse production. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thanks.
You can also join tonight's conversation. Our toll-free number is 1-800-543-8242, and our email address is connect@wpsu.org. You may also tweet your question or comment using the hashtag WPSU Conversations. So let's begin where we hope all home gardeners begin, and that is with a soil test. Don't guess. Soil test is what Penn State's slogan is, and for $9, it sounds like a good investment. Explain a little bit, if you would, John, what a soil test entails and what the homeowner needs to do to get a good sample.
Okay. First thing is to go to the county extension office to purchase the kits. They're individual kits. They're $9 each. You can get as many as you want. In the kit is instructions, and the instructions will tell you how many samples you need to take, how big of an area, how deep, those kinds of things. You will then put your soil sample in a container, mix it up well so that all the areas mix together and it's uniform. Try to take out any big pieces of like organic matter, roots or leaves, things like that, and any larger rocks. Then you only send about a cup of soil away to the lab. Once you send it away, about a week to 10 days later, they'll get you back a response. And the responses will give you the nutrients you need. It'll also tell you if you need lime and what kind of lime you should use.
I think something that a lot of people may not know is they can also request that the test result go to an extension specialist who can help explain some things if you're not quite sure what the test results mean or what the additional recommendations are.
Yeah, we do have access to see each person's kit, or results, I'm sorry. And often the master gardeners or the educators can help them if they have a problem that they don't understand the recommendations or how to apply the materials, things like that.
Okay, so each of you brought a couple of things with you, things that are cropping up already in the landscape. So I wanted to talk about, because invasive seems to be an increasingly big problem throughout the country. You brought something that a lot of people are seeing in their landscape, and that is Japanese knotweed. Explain why this is such a tenacious invasive.
Yeah, Japanese knotweed, or a lot of people know it as Japanese bamboo because it does look like a bamboo. It likes wetter areas, so you'll often see it along creeks and rivers, and it does get spread. I live in the Bloomsburg area. We did not have it in the Bloomsburg area until after one of the larger floods that kind of came down the river.
Down the river, wow.
And now it's very pervasive. It's a very aggressive growing, warm season plant. It spreads by rhizomes, and so it will travel and each patch spreads. It has a tremendous root system, so you can cut it down and it grows right back.
You said rhizomes, and for those who are watching, who are joining us tonight by television, they can see. So there's one root that started this particular plant, and another one shooting out to create another knotweed.
Yeah, in that picture, that smaller white root is the new shoot that's going to make a new cane for this year. So it's a very tough weed to control.
Okay. And Tom, you brought with you spirea that is already, this early in the season, affected by aphids.
Yeah, I brought in some spirea, and what caught my eye was the upper leaves were kind of shiny, and when you would touch them, they're sticky. And then if you look really close, you see a lot of little green dots moving around, and those are aphids. And the aphids are injecting their feeding tube or structure into the plant, extracting the plant sugars, consuming some of that, but also depositing some of that onto the leaf. And so we call that the honeydew, and it's really sticky. And so this spirea was heavily infested with that. And so one thing that happens with a aphid infestation is that a couple weeks after that, lady beetles will come in and they'll start feeding on those aphids. So sometimes people get confused on what's going on and kind of the battle between the aphids and the predators and
which insect to try to get rid of.
Well, yeah, everyone recognizes what an aphid looks like. Everyone recognizes what a lady beetle looks like, but not many people recognize the immature stage of a lady beetle. It looks like a little alligator, a reddish alligator. And when people see that, they think they've got another pest problem. And so sometimes they want to try to go after the immature lady beetle.
And of course, this is a beneficial.
It is. Both the immature and the adult lady beetles feed on aphids. So you want to keep both of those around.
Okay, so what should people do about the aphid? Let's say the lady beetle doesn't show up. What should homeowners do to get rid of that problem?
There's a lot of things you could do. I mean, if it's a small infestation, you're not worried about some disease pressure, you could use just a spray of water to wash the insects off the leaf surface, although then you're possibly promoting maybe some disease problems. And there are some safer or lower risk insecticides, like safer insecticidal soaps. And they'll target those soft-bodied insects, which aphids are, and control them. Now, on a heavy infestation like that, you're kind of behind the curve. You may need to go with something a little stronger, a little more powerful. But there are some organic options out there, very effective.
Okay, it looks like we already have our first email. Let's go to that. This one comes from Carrie, who writes, I have a plot at the Tuda Community Garden, and like many gardeners who have edge plots, I have a big problem with crown vetch. It has established itself in my asparagus plot. That forms a dense stand, making control difficult throughout the growing season, and it's spreading to adjacent plots. How do I control it?
Crown vetch, that's another invasive.
That's a tough one.
Which, of course, was introduced as the beautification plant for Pennsylvania.
Exactly. So
unwittingly, we bring plants in and don't realize what problems they could cause down the road.
Yeah, you know, for asparagus.
You do have the option early in the season before they come up. We used to recommend this pretty strongly. We're kind of backing away from a growing asparagus standpoint, but very shallow tillage. Often, people would just go through very shallow with their tiller, and just kind of break up that top, a half an inch to an inch of soil, get rid of those weeds that overwintered, and then the asparagus kind of starts clean. And that will help discourage it. It'll probably take some time doing that to really get rid of it. But I think when it comes right down to it, they're got to spend some time out there pulling it out.
Pulling it by hand.
Yeah, it is a perennial, so and it's got a deep root, so that's going to be I think, one option. The other option is you can use an herbicide, maybe Roundup, like a wick applicator, where you're maybe just wiping the top of the crown vetch, as long as the spears aren't above the crown vetch. That might be an option, but I think the preferred option would just be some grunt work.
Some grunt work. All right. We have a call now from Dennis, who's calling us from Phillipsburg. Dennis, what's your question, please?
Hi, thank you very much. And my question is, I just heard you guys talking about one of my favorite weeds, or I think it's my neighbor's favorite weed, and we're debating on whether it's Kentucky pokeweed or if it's the actual Japanese knotweed. And they both look the same. They both look like they grow the same. And they're very, the one that I had growing next to our house was brought in with fill dirt, and it just spread all over the place. I looked it up online, and it looked like it was Kentucky pokeweed. So how do I really differentiate that?
And does it matter in terms of getting rid of it, John?
Yeah, it does.
I got rid of it. I got rid of it with real extreme diligence.
Okay, yes. Pokeweed, first of all, pokeweed tends to stay in one spot. It doesn't have the tillers to spread out like the Japanese knotweed. The other thing is pokeweed, it'll make a nice stalk, but like the Japanese knotweed that I brought in for you to see, I took my knife, I was going to cut it off first, and my knife would not go through it. It was that woody, that tough. So actually, as I was trying to cut it, I realized it was loose and I could pull it up. Pokeweed is softer than that. You can always put your knife through it, and it's not going to be quite as woody as the Japanese knotweed.
Okay, can you tell us, Dennis, how you got rid of it in your landscape? And then I think Tom has something to add.
Sure, and I think what we have then is Kentucky pokeweed, because you could easily slice through it with a knife. Okay. And so how I got rid of it, I dug down into 3.5 feet deep, as it were, some of the rhizomes. And some of the rhizomes, or the clumps, I think they're rhizomes, were as big as a basketball or more in size.
Sure.
Oh my gosh.
And they are very woody, and I used Roundup. And I used Roundup very diligently. I sprayed it on the leaves themselves. I didn't just go over the entire area. I just sprayed it exactly on the leaves or on the severed stems. And it took about a whole summer for them to be gone, and they are gone.
Wow, good for you. But let me ask you this. You said you got knotweed because it came downstream after a flood. What should you do with it after you've dug it up? I mean, should you put it in a garbage bag, burn it? What's the best way to eliminate it so it's not a problem for someone downstream, literally?
No, don't put it in the compost pile.
Yeah, no, don't do that. That's a good question. Yeah, probably. I mean, you hate to put things in the landfill, but that's a safe.
Probably
if you have a
the
small
safest
amount of it, that's a safe way to get rid of it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dennis, for your phone call. We go to Rhonda, who's calling us from State College. Go ahead, please, Rhonda. Is Rhonda there? Okay, we'll probably get her back in a minute. You also brought in, John, some examples of pests affecting fruit trees.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the plum weevil, which is a problem for all fruit trees. What are you seeing right now?
It's a plum curculio, which is it's actually a little black weevil-looking hard-shelled insect that's only out at night. So people never see it, but you'll always see, if you have tree fruit, you'll see the damage from it. That little weevil, it's the females, and they're inserting their egg into the fruit. And they leave a little crescent-shaped puncture hole, and you can see that now. And so it happens right when the fruit forms. The other thing that I brought in was some sawfly damage. And both of those, that damage happens now and earlier, just as the fruit is just starting to form. And why it's important is from now till about the middle of June is the ideal time to thin apples. And what we mean by that is, like on all of our larger fruited fruit trees, we want one fruit every 8 inches. And if we leave more than that, then the fruit doesn't size well, it doesn't develop good flavor. And so I want people to just watch for those defects from those insects, and when they're picking which ones they're going to pick off the ones that have been damaged.
Okay, now for a home grower, they would pick off and leave the one in the center. You called that the king?
Well, I would pick off the one that's not damaged. So sometimes that king bloom or the king fruit is actually the one that's damaged. So yeah, just kind of look them over before you start pulling them off and make sure you've got a nice one. And both of those insects, they're soon over. The plum curculio will be around for about another 2 weeks, and then it'll be gone, and that's it until next year.
Okay, and your fruit is okay? It can survive this infestation?
Yeah, again, pick off the ones that have the problems. If you leave ones on that have those defects, often it's just a cosmetic. You'll have deformed shaped apples, dimples in them, things like that, but the apple's still usable.
And maybe a little extra protein.
No.
No?
Well, possibly, yeah. We don't want that, but that does happen.
Okay, we have an email from Lee, who writes to us. Lee says, can you recommend a blueberry variety, or Leo, I'm sorry, that's easy to grow? I've been trying to grow blueberries for years with little success. I have beautiful, prolific red raspberry plants growing just 10 feet from my blueberry plants, so I'm baffled. Don't they require basically the same things to grow?
No, not even close.
Well, I mean, saying that the brambles, the raspberries are growing very well,
right,
and not the blueberries. I mean, they require 2 different soil environments there. And so in the beginning we talked about the soil test. Soil test would be needed to look at the pH for those blueberries. They like it a little more acidic than your brambles, your raspberries.
Yeah.
So he would have to treat those 2 sites differently. A soil test would do that.
Yeah.
Add some sulfur, aluminum sulfur, some,
Yeah.
way to bring that down.
Okay, so the sulfur is the best way to acidify the soil, or are there other ways as well?
A fertilizer would contain some sulfur.
Yeah, but sulfur, like elemental sulfur, when you buy it, it's often used as a fungicide. It's basically a yellow powder. That is the most acidifying, product you can put on to lower your pH. And with blueberries, we're looking for like a 4.5 to say 4.8 to 5. Where with the raspberries, 6.5 is where we're at. So
Okay, so you shouldn't be
hugely
growing
different.
these
No.
near each other at all.
Treat them two separate sites.
Okay.
Yeah.
They could be grown almost next to each other, but you'd have to have some sort of designation where this is a blueberry field and then this is a raspberry field.
Okay, very good.
And there's no variety that's going to overcome that.
Okay,
So it doesn't matter what variety they try to grow.
all right. But do you have a favorite? Is there one that's easier to grow or no?
Patriot's a real good, nice backyard. It's early, so it misses some of the insect problems. Large, good flavor. It's a nice plant.
Okay, all right. We go to Rhonda. Rhonda is on the air from State College. Go ahead, please, Rhonda.
Hi. I have only enough space to grow tomatoes in containers, and I was wondering what varieties grow best that way. I know I have some friends that do that, and I'm not sure about how to go about that. How big does my pot need to be? What kind is the best to get?
Okay.
Patio tomatoes.
So there's a brand patio tomatoes.
No, I mean there are some that are better suited for growing on the porch or in a container than the ones that we usually grow out for in the garden settings. But I'm not real familiar with some of the patio varieties.
Yeah, and you can do a lot of different things with tomatoes. You can grow a bigger plant, like a variety that has a bigger plant, but you've got to have a bigger container. And so
When you say big,
yeah,
diameter and
we're
depth, what are we
saying
talking?
like a 5-gallon bucket would be probably minimum. And even a 5-gallon bucket, you'll be watering it every single day and taking a lot of water. What Tom suggested, the patio tomatoes, they were designed to stay small, and so they don't take as much care and as much watering. And for in a container, they're a nice fit.
Okay, and probably don't require the same kind of staking that other tomatoes would require.
They may require a little bit staking because they're still going to get some height. But if you would take something that you plant in the garden and put it in even a 5-gallon bucket, it's going to get 5-6 feet tall, and it is going to flop over pretty quickly.
Okay.
So most garden centers have tomato varieties that are for the porches or balconies where people want a fresh tomato, and so something specifically bred for that purpose.
All right. We go to Kay, who's calling us from Loganton. Kay, you're on the air.
Hi, I have several large beds of flowers in my yard, and I have a lot of shade. But the problem is I have landscape fabric down underneath the plants, and then when I put my mulch on, after about a year or two, I start getting all kinds of weeds again coming up. Now, I assume the weeds are coming from the mulch itself. So, how much thickness should I use on the beds to try to hold down on the weeds?
Yeah, the nice thing about landscape fabric is that it will minimize the weeds for about a year or two, and then there's organic matter that starts to accumulate on that. So she mentioned applying mulch. So as mulch breaks down, it serves as a really good seed bed for weeds that are kind of flying in or dropping in out of the atmosphere. And so the idea is to control weed growth, these annual weeds, is to apply a layer of mulch on a yearly basis. Because if you can bury the weeds or eliminate some of the light hitting those weed seeds, they don't germinate or have trouble coming up to the surface. So it's
But how deep are you saying?
probably about 2 inches of mulch a year. It degrades, it breaks down, and so the mulch is serving two purposes. It's one, it's conserving moisture. Who knows when we're going to run into a dry summer, but it's also inhibiting some of these seeds from germinating. Now the caveat is for some of these perennial weeds, we've talked about some of these perennial weeds, they can come up from deep under the soil profile and emerge. So even a 2-3 layer inch of mulch will control some of these perennial weeds. Does a good job on annual weeds, but not the perennials.
And what about the landscape paper she's talking about, which I can't tell you how many people I know have used it for a couple of years and then they are ripping it out, and that's not an easy job.
No, that's a tough one. It's nice initially, and it does control some of the weeds initially, but over time, just stuff accumulates on it, and then you've got this layer of almost soil above that weed fabric, and it's almost useless.
Yeah, every 2 years to replace it. I mean, people lay it and think, well, that's going to be there for 10 years.
No.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem in 10 years. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your call, Kay. We go to Barbara, who's calling us from Kerwinsville. What's your question, please, Barbara?
I'd like to know if either of the gentlemen could comment on straw bale gardening. I'd like to plant a couple tomato plants, and I think it would be interesting to try it.
That's interesting. I was just reading about planting potatoes in straw.
Yeah, I've never done it. I've never really worked with anyone that's done it. I mean, I've read it in some of the gardening magazines. It's one way to control weed growth. You've got your stuff up above the soil surface. I think it can get a little tricky on the watering aspect of it, though, because straw is not really holding that water as tightly as the soil.
The fertility would be another concern, especially with something that's a heavy feeder like a tomato or a potato. But it does work. I mean, I've seen people do it. My mother-in-law even does it. And what's nice is she does potatoes, and she can just reach her hand into the straw and harvest the potatoes without disturbing the plant. So it's a nice idea.
And just one comment. I think that's the kind of the beauty of gardening, though. If you want to try something, try it. Just see if it works. Just put out one straw bale and see how it works for you. And maybe there may be a mistake or two, and then try it again the next year. So I think it's kind of fun to experiment with plants.
Yeah.
Very good idea.
Keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
We go to Junior, who is calling us from St. Benedict. Go ahead, please, Junior.
Yes, my question was, last year I had planted my garlic and my onion side by side, and my garlic actually grew the same as my onions did in big round balls instead of in cloves. They turn out about twice the size of a golf ball, and I was curious if it's common for this to do that, because I actually made room in between my garlic plants this year to plant my onions to see if it would actually happen again, because I do a lot of canning, and it actually kind of worked out better for me that way. I was kind of curious about that.
So you want this to happen again?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, I never saw it before. I mean, you can't go to the store and buy just one big ball of garlic. I mean, it always comes in cloves. I mean, it would fit in the palm of your hand as how big they turned out.
John?
Well, garlic always, if you pull up a garlic today, that's what it's going to look like. What he described is what garlic looks like.
Okay, and you pull off the cloves.
And as it matures, then it segregates into the individual cloves. And so I'm wondering, did he harvest it early, or something might have happened to those plants that maybe they shut down and didn't fully mature. So that, normally that's not a desirable thing, but if you're happy with that, then
it was the same variety. Could there have been some different varieties out there that? Not that I'm aware of.
I don't know.
And can the garlic and onion being in close proximity have caused anything? No. Okay.
No, especially not. You're planting them. Yeah, the genetics are definitely separate. Yeah, so no.
Okay, interesting. Well, good luck with that. Thank you so much for your call, Junior. We have an email. This one comes to us from Dave, who writes, are there any new treatments for the prevention of early and late blight on tomatoes? And we were talking earlier that they've already seen late blight in Maryland. Yeah,
there was a report of late blight in, I think, a greenhouse on tomatoes. But that's about it at this point. Nothing has been reported in Pennsylvania, and the tomato growing season is just starting, so it's really early. Yeah. But it depends on the weather patterns, how it's going to get a foothold. Maybe it overwinter on a potato coal pile. So John and I and other extension educators are walking around the states or within the state around a lot of fields, so we keep an eye on what's going on. So I haven't seen anything yet on the late blight. Now, it is interesting. Penn State does have a pretty good fact sheet. I don't know if we can put that up, but we do have a fact sheet on late blight, and it's pretty informative on the life cycle and some of the control measures that gardeners can use to manage that pest before it really kind of just explodes in the garden.
So for this person, and we have, Extension has a number of brochures available to anyone in Pennsylvania with a phone call is all it takes to get them. Is that right?
Well, most of those fact sheets or publications are available online, and so relatively easy to get to. You can print them off, or you can bookmark them and just save them or put on your desktop. You might not need them right now. It might be a good idea to locate some of them now, so that when, if late blight is in the news, usually the local papers pick it up. You can access it relatively quickly and just kind of say, okay, what are the steps I need to do to try to get through this growing season, make sure I get tomatoes at the end of the growing season.
Okay, and could you give that caller some, or that person who sent the email, some tips on how to prevent early and late blight?
Well, last year John talked about some new varieties that were coming out that are late blight resistant. So those are coming onto the market. So, if this is something that you've battled every year and you like your tomatoes, you might want to start looking at the garden centers and the seed catalogs on resistant varieties out there. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. People have small gardens, so they tend to plant things really close, try to maximize the space in their garden. And if you could space things out a little bit, so that the air can move around. Early blight, he mentioned, and late blight are both diseases that like moisture on the leaves. So if you can do something to enhance the drying of those leaves a little quicker, the disease is, I'm not going to say eliminated, but you can kind of manage it a little bit.
So watering at night and watering the leaves is a bad idea. When you're watering your tomato plants, water them at the roots, which is where they need the water.
That's correct. Don't set up your sprinkler system and let that water just
and
fall
douse
over
the entire plant.
Exactly. And you're just it's a calling card for a lot of disease organisms.
Okay.
If a gardener has to use overhead watering, morning is the best time to do that because the sun's going to be out and it's going to dry off more quickly.
Okay, and then I want to come back and have you both talk about some samples that a viewer sent in to us of tomatoes that have some problems that hopefully you can diagnose. But if you are just joining us, I'm Patty Satalia, and this is Conversations Live, Get Your Garden on WPSU. Our guests tonight are Tom Butzler, a Penn State Extension horticulture educator, and John Esslinger, a county-based extension educator, also with Penn State Extension. Our telephone number is 1-800-543-8242, and our panel is ready to take your phone calls. If you'd prefer to email us, our address is connect@wpsu.org. So these tomatoes I said we would talk about. Someone sent these in to us because, as you can see, there's yellow on the leaves. They're curling a bit, and there's actually even purple underneath. What do you think's going on here?
Okay, that's probably phosphorus deficiency. When the plant's not taking up enough phosphorus, the leaves will turn that purple color. Probably could use more phosphorus in the soil, and so whoever's growing those, just think about that maybe for next year. The other thing is if you're growing the plants cold, like if they're in the, say, the low 60s where you're growing them, then that inhibits the ability of the plant to take up phosphorus. And so try to keep them warm, make sure there's enough phosphorus in the soil. Probably those plants, if they're put out in the garden and the garden soil has plenty of phosphorus, they'll grow right out of that and it'll never be a problem.
Okay, that's leads me to the next question. How deep, number one, given the fact that these do have a little bit of problem, how deep should they be planted, and should you pinch off the leaves that don't look very good?
Plant them deep. Think about that plant being put outside in the wind, and it's going to get pushed around, knocked around a lot. If you can plant it so that those leaves are just out of the soil, okay, that's going to protect that plant a lot. It'll put roots out from this stem, and so it'll have a nice root system.
And so the deeper you plant it, the bigger, the more extensive the root system is.
I don't like the idea of pinching leaves off, only because it does open it up and makes wounds for disease, things like that. A lot of people do it and it works out, but that's just my personal. Yeah. Okay,
and you talked about adding phosphorus. Give us a good, there's everyone uses the tomato fertilizer. What are your recommendations? You know, people don't necessarily understand the numbers, a 10-10, a 10-35.
Right.
What do those mean, and what do you want for a tomato plant?
The middle number is phosphorus.
Okay.
And when we look at the soil sample results that come in, most of our soils here in Pennsylvania have enough or excessive amounts of phosphorus. And so get a soil sample first. Your soil sample will tell you if you need phosphorus. If you do, put it on. And phosphorus is in all vegetative or organic materials. So if you're using compost or manure, it has a lot of phosphorus in it. So make sure you account for that. But there's lots of different sources of phosphorus, and phosphorus stays in the soil. So if you put it on this year and you don't use it all up, it's available next year and it'll be there.
And that leads to the importance, again, when we started off this whole conversation, is the
soil test.
Soil test.
Yes.
For $9, the best $9 you can spend on your garden.
Right. When you said, how much phosphorus should you add, we get those phone calls at the office a lot, and it's really hard to answer that question because we have nothing to go on. The idea is if you have a soil test, then we could look at that and say, okay, this is how much is there. This is what you need to add, or no, you don't need to add any.
And of course, all of this begs the question. You need one thing for your tomato plants. You need something entirely different for your blueberry plants. So you want a soil test in different areas. So you might need to order 10 soil tests.
Well, most of your, for a garden, I would just do one soil test.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Most of the vegetables need to be relatively, similar type soil requirements. Blueberries, azaleas, rhododendron, they're in a different family, and those are unique, but the majority of things are going to be very similar.
Okay, good to know, good to know. Dawn is calling us from Coudersport. Dawn, you're on the air.
Thank you. We are overrun with agapodium. It's on the banks around our house and now is starting to come into the yard and into the flower beds. I did try to get rid of it a couple of years ago by pulling it, but apparently wasn't successful, and it's just everywhere now. Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, and so this is coming into your lawn, into your grassy area? Is that what
I'm sorry?
It's coming out of your landscape beds and into your grassy area?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you have this broadleaf weed and it's intermixing with your grass now. Is that correct?
It's coming. Yes, it's coming into the yard.
Okay, so a lot of these creeping perennials, and John mentioned the word or term rhizome. They have these underground stems, and so just pulling what's above the surface and not getting what's below the surface, you're not really doing too much. I mean, it may look like you're kind of controlling it, but you've left kind of the vegetative or the asexual structure underneath the ground, and it just puts up new growth. And so it's a little hard to completely control that when you leave plant remnants behind. I guess you could keep on pulling it, but for something like that, I think maybe the only option is going to be some type of herbicide. If it's in a landscape bed where you can just use something like acetic acid, which is, in vinegar, there are products out there that are a little higher in concentration, and it might do the trick. It might take repeated applications, where you can go to something like Roundup in a landscape bed. But once you get into the grass, you have some different options there that will go after your broadleaf weeds, whether it's a dandelion or whatever, clover, and not hurt your grass. So there are some options out there with some herbicides.
Whether it's dandelion or agapodium, it seems that the smaller the plant is, if you pull it when it's smaller, it seems so much easier to get out of the ground.
Yep. Before it gets established, and again, that rhizome. Once it gets those rhizomes underneath that soil surface and gets established, it's very hard to get rid of some of these weeds.
Okay, well, good luck to you. Thanks for your call. We go now to Judy, who's calling us from Clarion. You're on the air, Judy.
Hi, Patty, and we love your show.
Thank you.
My question is, we've been gardening here in Clarion County, out in the country, for about 25 years or so. And what we're finding is that we're having more and more hornets and ground wasps that are pretty much chasing me out of my flower beds. We're trying not to use pesticides when we can help it. And we're just wondering if you've seen more of this, or if it's cyclical, or what you guys would recommend. We appreciate your advice, and I'll listen off the air. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy. And we've got the bee man right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know a lot about honeybees. I try to stay away from the yellow jackets and wasps. You know, if it's in an area where you're not frequenting on a, gardening on a regular basis, kind of like to leave them alone because they do serve a purpose. Although some people are very allergic to bee stings, whether they're yellow jackets, wasp, or honeybees, and so they do need to be eliminated. So I haven't seen an increase or decrease in those numbers. And I do a lot of work with the honeybee community, and that's been a struggle every year. The numbers are pretty dismal. So they did a survey this year on honeybees, and about 44% loss of colonies in Pennsylvania. So that's a pretty
overall, or just in this last season?
This last season.
Okay.
Yep. They do a yearly survey. And it varies from state to state. Ours was about a little under 50%, so it's been pretty rough. But as for wasps, hornets, yellow jackets, I don't know the numbers if they're fluctuating or not. And they feed a little differently too. Your yellow jackets, they are somewhat predatory on other insects, whereas honeybees, they'll just go after nectar and pollen in a flower. Your yellow jackets, they're beneficial. They don't distinguish between bad insects and good insects, but they do feed on other insects out there. Towards the end of the season, they are going after sugars. That's why you'll see them in Coke cans or soda cans. But I don't know about the numbers.
I have to say on some of our outbuildings, I see they make like a nest that looks like a mud nest. You can actually pull them right off.
Yep.
I've pulled them off and put them someplace else.
Good.
I don't know how dangerous that is, but.
Yeah. Where I'm involved or helping a little bit with a project where we're looking at different wild bees that are pollinators. And, for example, the squash bee, it does the majority of the work of pollinating pumpkins and winter squash for us. When you see that bee, it looks very similar. It looks just like a honeybee. That's there's a lot of bees out there that does not sting. It doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't threaten anything, and it lives in the ground, solitary bee, and it's doing so much good. And so, some of these we may think that's a problem, but it may be the very best thing we could have. So.
And of course, Judy said she doesn't want to spray for these,
Right. No.
but there's nothing else that you can think of to help her get rid of them. But you're saying that maybe they're actually helping to pollinate and make her garden even more beautiful.
Yeah, she needs to make sure that she knows what she's looking at.
Okay.
If it is yellow jackets, I'm allergic, so I can tell you, and I hate to say it.
And they do sting.
Yeah, in my own yard, if I had yellow jackets, I'd take care of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how?
I'd have to use an insecticide.
Okay.
Yeah. Try to use the safest thing you can.
All right. We go to Donald, who's calling us from Hindman. I'm not sure. Where is Hindman, Donald?
It's about 7 miles from the Mason-Dixon line. It'd be north of the Mason-Dixon line on Route 96.
All right. Well, what's your question?
Well, I've been having trouble with this tomato blight and the mildew on my grapes. And I got some of this soap shield. It's flowable liquid copper fungicide, and I wanted to see if that would be okay to put on potatoes and grapes.
Well, I don't know about the specific product you're talking about, but it would be a really good idea to read that pesticide label.
But it's not a pesticide.
It's
just it gets rid of the blight on tomatoes.
Well, it'll
get rid of the early blight and the late blight.
Okay, so I use the broad term pesticide, and so specifically it's a fungicide. And so there should be some literature that comes with that and tells you what you can use that on. And, usually a lot of these labels will list the crops that you can use those on and the rates that are allowed for those crops. Did that come with it?
Yes, it did.
Okay. So, you could give that a try and see if it gives you some control. A lot of our commercial growers, they have access to some different type of fungicides, really effective. The copper, did he say a copper sulfur?
Copper.
Yeah, and he was wondering
Yeah.
If he uses it on grapes, can he also use it on potatoes?
Well, again, you have to look at the label.
Yeah.
So you got the label is a federal law, and so it's undergone millions of dollars of research and extensive looking at it, and so you just got to go by the label.
And it's that specific? It would tell you which crops you could use it
Yes.
on? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, good luck to you, Donald. We go to Noah, who's calling us from State College. You're on the air, Noah.
Hi there. My question is in regards to soil content, and I'm using a community garden plot, and just luck of the draw, I have it seems like I have a base layer in my garden that's very has a lot of clay, and so I'm thinking to build up would be my best bet, to plant some deeper rooted stuff. So I know I can't take any clay out, but what's the best way to really build on top with some more soil? What type of soil should I be using? Just compost, or is there something else I should be using?
John?
I think any kind of organic matter you can get it worked into that soil is going to help you. Organic matter is going to get that soil more loose. It's going to get more worms and things active in that soil. And you mentioned about deep-rooted crops. If you have the ability to put a cover crop in, especially a deep-rooted cover crop, that will help break that up.
Give us an example of a deep-rooted cover crop.
There's a lot of things. So one rye. Rye is amazing, the root system that it makes. In the fall, we've dug up rye, and it'll be down 4 or 5 feet, and the top is only 6 inches tall.
And why is that good? Because it's breaking up the soil for you.
It's working
breaking
down
up
through
this
that
clay.
soil.
Okay.
Yeah, making channels for the water to go down through, and the roots will then, when the rye dies, the roots will then follow some of those same channels, and it just makes your soil more productive. But yeah, work organic matter into it. Try to use cover crops, especially deep-rooted cover crops, and it'll take a little time, but you'll see a dramatic improvement.
Okay, but now Noah said he wanted to just put this on top and not disturb the clay, and it sounds like you're saying mix it in with the clay.
It's in time, it's going to get mixed in regardless.
Okay.
Yeah. So the main thing is get it into that plot, and hopefully you can keep that plot for a couple of years.
Yeah, you put all that work and effort into it. You make sure you got that same section of the
stake
garden.
it out. That's yours.
All right, good luck to you, Noah. Thank you for your phone call. We go to Charles from Williamsport. You're on the air.
Yes, I planted tomatoes from seed, and then when they grow, and they really look good, they're nice and green. And then when I transplant them, it seems like the leaves lose their color. They turn white.
They turn white?
Yeah.
Well, tomato plants are heavy feeders.
Beg pardon?
The tomato plants are heavy feeders. So it may be initially, are you using a soil media that you're getting out of a bag, from a garden center to start your seed?
Well, I make a mixture of stuff, I guess.
Okay. Well, I suspect, I don't know what you're all putting in that mixture, but it sounds like there's enough nutrients in there that your seeds germinate, and in the initial growth, there's plenty there to get that plant off and running. But once it starts putting out its roots and starts growing, it's running out of gas, and it's just a little deficient.
Can I ask a question? Charles, does this whitening happen right after you put them outside?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, you're getting sunburn, and when you grow a plant inside, it's kind of like us all winter. We're inside, and we go outside, and we wear short sleeves, and all of a sudden we got sunburn, and we're wondering what happened.
Right.
And the same thing's happening to your plants.
Oh, okay.
What you want to do is going from inside to outside. You want to kind of like you
Gradually.
would, like you're getting a suntan. Put them out for an hour or so the first day. Put them back in.
And not in full sun the first day.
Well, if you keep it short, you can put them in full sun, but not very long. And then work them up until they're out for 6 or 8 hours, and then plant them outside, and you'll eliminate that problem.
So they're scalded and they're in shock. Can they rebound for him?
Oh yeah,
they will. Okay.
Tomatoes are tough.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good luck to you, Charles. Sharon from State College, you're on the air.
Yes. Hi. I have some peony issues all of a sudden in the last couple of years. I have probably about 20 peonies in different areas of my yard, and they've always thrived for probably the last 16, 17 years. And this year I have 2 of them. They came up much later than the others, and they're very stunted, and it doesn't look like anything is going to happen. And I was wondering if there is a reason.
So the only difference you see is they're just stunted. They're smaller in growth compared to the others.
Well, they didn't even break through the soil until just recently, whereas my other ones are all ready to bloom.
Okay, and it's the same variety?
They're very short, and they're kind of yellowish. And I haven't done anything to them. I mean, I mulch my beds, every year to 2 years.
And it's the same variety? And they're all the same type?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could it be a groundhog damage?
I don't see any groundhogs. I have tons of perennials in these beds, and I don't see any tunnels or anything else having an issue. I do have a larger population of squirrels and chipmunks the last couple of years, I've noticed. I didn't know if that would, they would do.
Yeah, I mean, you may have had some varmint activity down near the roots, and maybe it kind of disturbed it a little bit, and you had some roots in maybe a tunnel that kind of dried out.
But do peonies poop out after a while? I know there are some plants, they look great for years, and then one year they're
Weren't peonies supposed to last for like almost 50 years?
I guess it's possible. Maybe they're using up all the nutrients or whatever in that area. But the thing that's kind of interesting with your situation is that all of them are looking normal. They're growing normal, except for these two.
Yeah, and they're in totally different sections of the yard. Like I have one that's in a row of peonies that's having this stunt problem, and all the other ones around it are doing beautifully. And then way on the other side of the house, I have another one that's.
I don't know that much about. I don't know that much about peonies, but when you say stunting, it could be maybe something's tunneled underneath there. It could be there are some nematode issues. You get nematodes on these. They're like tiny microscopic worms. They get in on the roots. They start feeding. One of the things with nematodes is you get stunting. I mean, that could be a possibility. You might want to sacrifice one of those ones that isn't growing real well. Dig it up and look to see what's going on down underneath the soil.
And can she send it to Penn State?
Yeah. What county did you say you were in?
State College.
So I'm in State College.
Okay.
Center County.
So there's a really active Master Gardener group here in State College, and you could drop off a sample at the local extension office. It's in Bellefonte, and have them look at it. And then we also have access to a plant disease clinic, so they can look at that, and if it's a disease issue or a nematode issue, they'd be able to identify that also. So the way it usually works, you take to the Master Gardeners, and if they not sure what they're looking at, they'll package it up, and it will get sent up to the Penn State's Plant Disease Clinic.
All right, thank you for your call. We go to Penny from State College. Go ahead, please, Penny.
Hi, good evening. I was calling to find out last year with my cauliflower, none of my plants made any heads, and I was wondering if you may have an idea of why that was and what I can do to prevent it this year. My broccoli did fine. They're in the same boxes, but like I said, the cauliflower, there was none of my plants made a head. Now, and all of the leaves curled up like they usually do, but there was no heads all season.
Tom or John?
Can you tell us when did you plant them?
We put both the cauliflower and the broccoli in it would have been about mid-May, maybe the end of May.
Okay.
Last year.
So, sometimes if people put it in too late, it doesn't have time to make a head because it's a longer season than a broccoli plant.
But she put it in plenty early.
She did. And assuming that they had plenty of room, that they had enough space. The next thing I would look at is I was going to say, cauliflower likes a lot of boron, but so does broccoli. So if your broccoli did well, then there must have been enough boron there for the cauliflower also. It was hot and dry.
Could have been too hot for that. I mean, some of the broccoli, has been bred to withstand some of this heat.
But the cauliflower is more sensitive to that.
Maybe it was a lot of afternoon sun.
Yeah, and we did have, last year we had a very warm and dry August and early September. And that might have been the problem.
So what advice do you have for her going forward? I don't know if you're growing it again this year, Penny, or not, but what advice would you have?
In those situations...
Oh, wait, we can't hear Penny.
You know, and like I said, they even, you know, they curled up on themselves like they do, you know, whenever they're forming the head. But there was not one single one of them made a head. There was an odor of like a cauliflower odor, but there was no heads made at all. And like I said, the broccoli did fine. The broccoli always does real well. And I'm just hoping, you know, I'm just trying to look for something, if you have any advice as to, you know, what I can maybe do. And we do water regularly, you know, so I don't think it was necessarily a water problem, but I didn't know if you guys had any good advice for me to help me this year.
They look a little stumped, Penny.
Yeah, without seeing it, I really don't. Yeah.
All right. Well, sorry we don't have more information. Thanks for your phone call. We go to Patricia, who's calling us from Hollidaysburg. Go ahead, please, Patricia.
I wondered if you could advise me on something here. If you use Roundup to get rid of a plant, how long do you have to wait before planting something else in that place?
And of course, Roundup, the ingredients in that is glyphosate, which we hear so much about. What's your advice, John?
Yeah, Roundup is taken up through the leaves. It's not taken up through the roots or through the soil at all. And so I would wait until that plant was the one that you're trying to control. Wait till it's completely dead. And then if you read the Roundup label, there are some specific requirements as far as tomatoes. They want you to wait a month. I think it's either 4 weeks or a month from the time you spray it till the time you plant tomatoes in that same spot. So read the label, but typically it's once the plant's completely dead, gone, remove it, and then whatever you put in that spot will be okay.
Yeah, it gets bound up pretty tightly by the soil, and so it's not really...
And is there something she could do besides Roundup to control?
Right. So what, is she still on?
Yes.
What specifically are you trying to control?
Well, I was trying to get rid of one of the grasses, and they grow so big, and it's coming over top of a sidewalk and everything, and so we wanted to get rid of it.
Are these clumping type grasses, or are these like running type grasses? Are these ornamental grasses, or
oriental type grasses? Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, you know, one option, those are relatively easy to control. You can just dig up that root ball and eliminate those grasses. But that is some...
And then you don't have to worry about planting your vegetables or when.
Right. But there is some effort. You know, some of these ornamental grasses, if they're well established, I mean, that's a pretty massive root ball. So it does take some effort. And I don't know if you have access to, you know, someone in the family that can dig that up. But that's one way to control those ornamental grasses.
Okay. We're going to try, thank you for your call, Patricia. We're going to try to take one more call with just a little bit of time remaining. John from Moshannon, what's your question, please?
Oh, yeah. My question is about bamboo. I've got a patch here for a lot of years, and the past couple of years, it's thinning out in the middle. Of course, it's branching outward, as it always does, but I don't know if I'm doing something wrong.
Oh, you want the bamboo to grow? This is ornamental bamboo.
Grow in the middle.
Well,
and what happened was all the stalks dried out, and I went in and I chopped them down, you know, probably about a foot up off the ground because it hurt, and you know, and I'm just trying to get the middle to
fill in.
Regrow.
To fill in, okay.
I don't know much about bamboo, but if it's like a lot of perennials, oftentimes when they start growing, that middle gets really crowded, you know, dense mass of rhizomes or whatever structures there, and you get that middle that will die out. And so one of the recommendations with perennial flowers, again, I don't know so much about bamboo, is to divide that. You pull up that clump of daylilies, for example, and cut it into quarters, and then either throw away the other 3 or make your bed larger. But usually perennials in that middle, it does tend to die out because of that dense
There's
mass.
a tangle of stuff there, and it's
Yeah.
not allowing something to come up in that
exactly
that bare spot.
So, I don't, other than that, John, you have any experience with bamboo?
No, I don't.
Okay. That's my first thought on that.
Okay, well, thanks so much for your phone call. Susan, I'm sorry we're not going to be able to take another phone call. Or can we? I'm asking can we take this next phone call or no? We're not going to take that phone call. So sorry. With just a minute remaining, though, if you could get home gardeners to do just one thing this season, what would it be?
And I think I said this last year too, but it's really important in your gardens to stay ahead of the weeds. If you go out there, like something you planted last week, if you look real close, there's little weeds starting to come up. Just a very light hoeing, just disturb those little weeds. You can eliminate them before they get started. Don't wait until they're a problem.
Okay, in 10 seconds, Tom.
I think I'll piggyback on that, and not just weeds, but other pests. Those would be insects. If you can jump on the problem early, it's easy to control.
All right, thank you both so much for being with us. Our guest tonight, Tom Butzler, a Penn State Extension horticulture educator, and John Esslinger, a county-based extension educator also with Penn State Extension. I'm Patty Satalia. For all of us here at WPSU, thanks for joining us. Have a good night.